Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a divorce valuation expert and mediator in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we'll discuss why valuation expert opinions differ and the value of a rebuttal expert with Matt Stelzman, an expert in forensic, litigation, and valuation work in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who also serves clients in Atlanta and around the country.
And then finally, again, the professional incompetence. So when you're dealing with a person, an expert who's serving in a litigation role, the attorneys have to understand that they live in the realm of law every day, and the financial experts don't. So there's a lot of aspects about litigation cases that you can only understand through experience and unfortunately living it the hard way. Getting caught on certain things that you didn't know existed. For example, in Tennessee, and I don't know if it's everywhere, in terms of interest expense, you can't use compounded interest. You have to use simple interest. So it's things like that you might not understand that, you throw it out there and you say, hey, I calculated interest on this damages amount, and here's the amount. And the attorney's like, awesome, we've got the damages, we've got interest. You go to court. They didn't even think to look if you use compounding or simple interest. So, and then the other side is like, well, you see this court document says you can't use compounding, and all of a sudden you've learned a lesson. So there's certain aspects to litigation that you've got to understand through just experience. Let's see. And again, you are the professional, so you've got to, again, uphold your end of the bargain in terms of expressing what it is that you're good at, and then falling back on the attorney for them to kind of guide you through the legal aspects of it. One final example of this was we were in a court case, and the opposing expert, it was a valuation, and the opposing expert used 1 year of earnings to capitalize, to come up with the value of the company. So they used the most recent earnings. And again, the earnings had been kind of up and down throughout the 5 years. And just so happens that the other expert used the highest year, which was the most recent year. And that's the only year that this professional used. What she didn't understand is that there's a court case out there, the Blasingame versus American Materials, that says that if you don't consider at least 3 years of earnings in your valuation, you better have a good reason, or it's going to get thrown out. So that was presented to her. She didn't know that it existed, and that caused a good dent in her testimony because she just considered the highest year. So that makes you look biased. So it's scenarios like that you need to have the experience in doing the litigation work in order to even know what you don't know, like we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. I mean, you brought up a bunch of different interesting issues. I think for me, the key ones are, and we talked about this briefly, is like, are you part of the team as the expert or not? And going in, a lot of times, even when the attorneys tell me the story at the beginning, I feel like they're prepping for how they're going to present the story to the judge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit more flagrant. It's a little bit more, and we have a tendency to, I think, as you get more expertise in being a litigation expert, you start to step back and say, okay, there's 3 sides to every story. So I'm hearing one, and then I can see what the documents say. I can see what the other side says. But you really do have to kind of pressure test all of the conclusions and all of the documents and ask questions, because I think we sometimes erroneously think that people are keeping information from us, but they don't always know what's important to us, and so really having, sometimes you have these longer document requests, and people are like, why do you need all this information? Well, sometimes I don't need it. If there's no litigation happening, if you don't have any non-recurring things that happen, but a lot of times people don't know what those mean. And so you just, you do the document request, but then you have to go back in and say, okay, let's talk about these things. Have you ever had a partner that you bought in or out? Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yep.
I did have that happen. Oh, I just had an offer the other day, and things like that I I don't think people are always trying to go around the system, but you definitely have to know what part you play. But what part you play usually is based on your own reputation. And so if you're continuously brought in to have a favorable position for any sort of party, because I like to say that I really don't care about any of the parties. Like I'm going in with my reputation and I'm going in with a report that if I handed to you, Matt, you would be like, I mean, it's pretty, I can't find a lot of problems with it. I
Yep.
definitely don't want to come in with a report where you're like, like the red flags, because the red flags are only going to be for another valuation person.
Mhm.
Only somebody that's way down the rabbit hole of understanding valuations is going to see the red flags in my report. But that's the issue, is that that then to me signals bias in some respect. And so really thinking it through from all the sides and saying, okay, if I average these three, if I average these five, if I looked at a descending average, if I look for a different weighted average, like what creates the range? Because if there's somewhere in there that it gives you just a pop too high or a pop too low, and there's all different ways to look at it, and they're all kind of in this reasonable land, but you choose something that gets you in those areas, that appears biased. Whether or not it is, the appearance is enough.